Churches today are building massive auditoriums, reaching more people on a Sunday morning than ever before. Yet, beneath that explosive physical expansion, individual commitment, from volunteering to financial giving, is actually in steep decline. Missiologists call this shift ecclesiocentric mission. It happens when a church prioritizes institutional preservation and top-down growth over the messy peer-to-peer relationships that originally defined the faith. The institution grows while the people inside it become spectators. In early 2020, physical distancing orders locked the doors on that centralized model overnight. Pastors and congregations were abruptly forced to rely entirely on digital workarounds to keep their institutions running. Research conducted during the lockdowns revealed exactly what was lost in that transition. Survey respondents reported they deeply missed the spontaneous, unplannable conversations and the physical closeness of face-to-face gatherings. Digitizing a one-to-many broadcast does not automatically build a digital community. Instead, it strips away the last remaining layers of social cohesion, exposing the deep isolation that members experience in the dead space between Sundays. To bridge that gap, many congregations turn to existing social platforms to host their daily interactions. That decision exposes a critical design flaw. This flowchart demonstrates how those commercial platforms actually operate. Algorithms filter a user's input and broadcast it widely to maximize engagement metrics and keep attention locked. Look at the failure point here. Genuine spiritual connection requires vulnerability. The moment someone shares a struggle or a prayer request on these platforms, the system converts that vulnerability into performative content for an audience, turning a private moment into a data point for engagement. Trying to build deep, empathetic relationships inside an environment engineered for endless scrolling means taking a tool designed to harvest attention and expecting it to nurture the soul. It simply does not work. To understand how the system should work, we must look back at the Book of Acts. The original Christian movement was entirely decentralized, operating as a daily, living network of house churches rather than a scheduled weekly event. It operated exactly like a biological ecosystem. They pooled their resources so that when one person had a tangible need, someone else's specific skill or gift naturally intersected with it to provide a direct solution. This node-based network model visualizes the blueprint the Apostle Paul laid out in his first letter to the Corinthians. He described the community as a human body, where every discrete part serves an essential, non-overlapping function, directly matching resources to needs without a central bottleneck. Watch what happens as the movement scales. Over centuries, that dynamic peer-to-peer network collapses into a rigid, top-down hierarchy. The daily exchange of gifts gets replaced by a weekly, one-to-many broadcast. The steep drop in modern church commitment we see today is a direct symptom of trying to force a dynamic movement through an outdated, centralized architectural model. The solution requires building an entirely new digital architecture, one that deliberately rejects the infinite feed. Imagine opening an app and finding a completely private, quiet space. No notifications flashing at you, no light counters, and no audience waiting. It is a digital room dedicated solely to your own study, journaling, and reflection. When you are ready to connect, this schematic shows the core mechanism at play: spiritual matching. Instead of tossing a question or a need into a public feed, your securely submitted input bypasses the crowd entirely and routes directly toward a complementary, matching node in your congregation. As the schematic completes the connection, notice the strict one-to-one routing. The gift or insight moves directly through the community to the exact person equipped to receive it, with zero public broadcast or audience visibility. By removing the audience, we remove the pressure to perform. This architecture is designed to direct requests for help specifically to the individual in the network who possesses the corresponding skill or knowledge to address it. This structure uses modern routing to facilitate the same organic, peer-to-peer functioning that sustained the movement in its earliest days. We have to draw a strict boundary here. This ecosystem is explicitly designed to leave the physical Sunday gathering untouched. The German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer argued that face-to-face interaction among believers is a divine reality. Sitting in a room together, sharing a meal, and physically bearing one another's burdens generates a friction and a cohesion that code can never replicate. This tool exists to cure the systemic isolation that sets in the moment the congregation leaves the building. It ensures the physical sanctuary remains entirely intact. For this platform to survive, there is a non-negotiable requirement. It cannot be engineered by big tech, and it cannot be monetized by venture capital. The modern church must pool its own resources. Developers, designers, and pastors sitting in the pews must collaborate to construct this infrastructure entirely internally, just as the early church shared its physical labor. The ultimate leverage of internal creation is ownership. If the community builds the infrastructure, the community owns the infrastructure, ensuring it remains permanently immune to algorithmic manipulation. The next evolution of the church requires engineering a digital architecture that allows an ancient movement to thrive, face-to-face and day-to-day, far beyond the walls of a physical auditorium.
There is a question that sits at the center of modern faith. If we believe the tomb is actually empty, if we hold the ultimate victory in our hands, why does so much of our daily spiritual life feel like a heavy, exhausting burden? The answer usually hits on Monday morning. We walk out of a highly produced Sunday service and step directly into a relational vacuum. It is a quiet, isolated stretch of days where the support and energy of the weekend completely evaporate. In the account of Acts, the community functioned through a daily survival network, pooling resources and wisdom in each other's homes to meet the immediate pressures of life. As the modern church grew, it adapted to support massive weekend crowds. The Sunday gathering became a highly efficient, scalable experience. But the trade-off was the loss of that daily, intimate connective tissue. To bridge that wide gap during the week, people naturally reached for the tools that were already installed on their phones. We tried to build a spiritual community using existing tech platforms. This chart maps a standard digital feedback loop, optimized for one goal: capturing your attention. When you inject a faith community into this machine, it must bend to the host's rules. Genuine questions become commodified content. Spiritual vulnerability becomes a public performance. You cannot cultivate deep, quiet connection inside an engine engineered to extract attention. The math of the system actively works against the goal. Before we can fix the tech problem, we have to address the internal posture required to navigate that isolation. The Apostle Paul wrote his letter to the Philippians from inside a Roman prison. He faced a genuine chance of execution. From that exact location, he instructed his readers to rejoice always. He was not putting on a brave face to impress his guards. He possessed a joy that did not rely on his external circumstances or the approval of the people holding the keys. C.S. Lewis described this kind of joy as a signal. It points beyond itself, arriving in your life to guarantee an ending before you even fully comprehend the mechanics of how you'll get there. Our first responsibility is to hold on to that signal. We have to stop waiting for our situations to improve or for the culture to give us permission to actually experience it. But maintaining that joy on a random Tuesday is incredibly difficult when the digital world you inhabit is constantly feeding you reasons to be anxious. This network map shows a new way forward. Imagine these isolated nodes are individuals. They carry latent skills and unspoken needs that perfectly align. A purpose-built architecture bypasses the broadcast feed, drawing a direct line connecting them. No like buttons, it remains strictly functional. This filters out the loud, performative noise of a commercial timeline and replaces it with quiet, targeted presence. Instead of continuing to host the life of the church on platforms that monetize distraction, the body of Christ has the option to build tools designed for its actual purpose. When you merge a group of people carrying that unshakable internal joy with a system that directly connects their needs every day of the week, the result is impossible to ignore. A community that remains steady and joyful while the surrounding culture fractures, forces an observation. They are operating on a source of data the rest of the world hasn't found yet. The resources to build this are already here. The developers, the designers, and the engineers capable of writing this exact code are sitting in the rows of our churches right now. We know the tomb is empty. We already hold the final victory, and the technical tools needed to scale that impact are highly accessible.